Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon, and once again, this is the Breaking Free show where we come together, you and me, and Amnon, of course, and our guests, of course, and we come together to explore breaking free from something, feeling our freedom, sharing our freedom, and just learning how to live the most fulfilling human life that we possibly can. So, with that, I want to say hello to Amnon.
Hello, Marilyn. How are you?
I'm fine, Amnon, and you? You
I'm
sound so
just
formal
fine.
today. Amnon is our producer, and you sound really formal today, like very uppity.
Yes, ma'am.
And why are you so uppity today?
I don't know.
Well, welcome.
Hi. Hey, y'all.
How you doing there, buddy?
Fine.
Good. I hope you're all doing great too. And it's great because we have so many wonderful people on our show that we have learned from, shared with, and have connected with over the years. And we've been doing this for 3 years and almost every single week. And I don't know how many shows that is, 300, 400, I don't know. A lot of shows. Anyway, lots of shows. And, we want very much to make a difference with every show that we bring to the stage, to the internet, every single one of them. We want to, just learn something from, myself included, everything, to share something, to understand people, understand myself, whatever it is. And, sometimes we have a show that we decide that we want to do another one of. We want to do it again because we know that it can make a huge difference and will make a huge difference to people listening. And today is one of those shows, and we were just talking about it before we went live, that, we have had maybe 6 of them. And they're all great, but sometimes we know the population out here can really, fare well to hear the information again and again and again. So I want very much to introduce my next guest to you. He's fabulous. He's been on before. It's a subject that is near and dear to many of us, but not just because it's ADHD and a lot of people have it, a lot of kids have it. It's because of the lessons learned with somebody with ADHD that we all can learn from. Every single lesson is something that we all can fare well with. So with that, I want to welcome Dan Galloway once again to the Breaking Free show. Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Great, how are you?
I'm good. The last time you were with us, you were in a motel room because you were speaking somewhere, and now you're in your own home, right?
Yes, I can do whatever I want today. I've got everything, all my toys, everything. I got the drumsticks.
Wow.
I have all the visuals, and this is going to be a good time today.
Good. So Dan's got a great sense of humor, and he's a perfect messenger to be able to talk about ADHD and, what it's about, how to live with it, and the creative energy part of ADHD, which I'm always fascinated with because I think a lot of us have that, and we can learn from each other and learn from Dan and how he handles it because that's one of his things. So Dan, tell everybody about you.
Okay, and I will do that. And before I forget to tell you, I'm in a very noisy neighborhood when something important needs to happen. In other words, when I need to make a phone call or like this kind of thing, you will more than likely hear the UPS truck will probably come around the corner and go, because it always does that, it always breaks. You'll hear dogs all over the place. Hopefully we won't hear landscapers. I'm just letting you know that's the only negative with me doing this at home, or the only, I should say, challenge. I really don't like to use the word negative, but just wanted to warn you that if it becomes crazy, just thought I'd let you know.
I think we can tell the difference between you and a horn, but go ahead.
Okay, but about me. Okay, I'll do my best here. Let's see here. To make a long story short, I was raised in Chicago. Born in Canada, actually, adopted, raised in Chicago. I've had ADHD my whole life. It wasn't like when I was 35, all of a sudden I was distracted by a squirrel or something and thought maybe I should get on some medication. I mean, and I'm not saying that people who don't realize it at 35 don't have ADHD, but I do think that it's kind of trendy right now to have ADHD. I mean, and again, I'm not saying that you don't have it, but excuse me, I may do this every so often too, adjusting my headphones here. But I have the real deal, and I went off to college, and my wife and I met at that point, she was a friend, fiance, marriage. We know how this goes, right? It'll be 30 years this December, actually. She's the most patient woman in the world. There's no way any other woman would put up with me. She truly is the most patient woman in the world. I have 2 kids that I adore. I love them, and they know it because I let them know all the time. The positive reinforcement, I think, is important. Whether you have a child who has ADHD or not, I think we all realize the importance of that. My wife and I moved to Orlando, Florida after we graduated from college, and I worked at SeaWorld as a recruiter, which was a lot of fun. Right about now, if I had a live crowd, if I had the crowd in front of me right now, someone would say, did I hire the animals? No, the animals were already there. I hired humans, ticket takers, engineers, and all that stuff. So that was a lot of fun. But looking back, I'll tell you that I don't know how I did that. And I know that I would not want to be a recruiter again because I had to sit down all day long. And I guess I was just accepting this is my life. I just need to have a job where I sit down. And now that I'm up and about and always doing, with humans in front of a crowd, and I'm the human in front of the other humans, and we're having a good time, I can't imagine going back to that kind of a job. But SeaWorld's a great place to work. If you want to go to SeaWorld, go for it. But anyway, it's just something that I've learned how important it is for me to be active. Like even now, I'm standing up. I'm not sitting down doing this interview. I'm standing up. Okay, so speeding it up, my wife and I eventually found Orlando to be a nice place to visit as opposed to live there. Again, great place to visit. We lived there for 14 years. And so we had visited for that long, so we thought it was time. We moved up to Raleigh, North Carolina in 1999. That's where we are now. I am self-employed. I do speaking on ADHD, also career development, career transition type of work. So if you're laid off, maybe you may come to a class, because I also work a little bit with an outplacement firm and do that. That really is that's my love, training people, motivating them, inspiring them, engaging them. And these are all gifts that I attribute to ADHD. One time I had someone say to me, "Where'd you get your training?" I didn't. It was just a kind of a natural thing. And if you really dig into whether it's on the internet or go to a bookstore, are there still bookstores? Wait a minute. We still have libraries, right? Because everything's on the internet. Yeah. Anyway, wherever you go for your research, if you read about ADHD, you'll find words. Well, pretty much all the words I've already used to describe my style, the way that I am when I work, and also that translates into how I am at home as well. It's just I'm genuine. I'm the real deal. I'm not. There's not some hidden message. I don't have some hidden agenda. It's just this is how I am, and that is definitely one of the traits too of ADHD. Is we're very real. We're very genuine. And I actually think that can scare some people, but that's probably something else I can answer later.
Can I interrupt you a minute? I think that's very interesting. And well, first of all, let me say Dan is a great guest. We've had a lot of guests on, and they're all great. And I would say that Dan has mastered. He's a master at working with ADHD and life in general. Because I've had guests on before that I cannot interrupt for a second, and Dan is right on. He's listening. And it's really should be easier than we give listening credit for. But, with Dan and ADHD, he could be like really absorbed, but he is able to listen and to take a cue. And so I want to really compliment him for that, because that is a huge deal, to be able to listen, to be such a great guest, because to have so many things to say, which he does, to have so many things to help people with, which he has, and also at the same time, and he's not seeing me, right?
Right,
no,
correct.
You're all seeing us, but Dan, where he is on Skype, the way this works is he's not seeing me. Now I can see him, but he is not seeing me. So he does not know when I'm interrupting him. What were you going to say?
Oh, no, I was going to say, here I am interrupting you. No, because I am. I've learned this, that you need to look, even if you were on the screen right now in front of me, I still wouldn't be looking at you because I'm looking at the camera, so I have the eye contact, because I've done that before I've seen it with people that are looking for work and they're doing some kind of mock interview with some kind of computerized thing. And when I look at their video to give them feedback, their eyes are down the whole time because they've been looking at the screen. So I learned that to look at the camera. So even if you were on the screen right now, I wouldn't be looking at you. So that's just something that.
So how do you know? How are you? I guess the question is, in being or ADHD, how do you? First of all, there's so many things I want to talk about with you, but how do you tune in so well? What is the thing that you do so well? Because that's huge.
Well, frankly, and again, as you know, well, maybe the audience doesn't know this, that we don't rehearse any of this ahead of time. I mean, it's not like Marilyn doesn't say, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you this, this, and this. So, you're one of these moments you're going to eventually catch me off guard, but not yet. Of course, I should never have done that because now I've jinxed the entire thing. No. That's negative thinking. But I will tell you, one time I told a friend that, oh yeah, the car's doing great, because they had asked me how the car was doing. That was the biggest mistake, no, not the biggest mistake of my life, but close to it, because the next day we had a huge car repair. So, sometimes I jinx things. So hopefully that won't change my luck right now with this, me being able to respond to your questions and making sense when I answer them. You were talking about being in touch and all that. I think, first off, that is one of the traits of ADHD, is we're rather intuitive. We're very big picture. We can kind of see where things might be headed, as opposed to detail-oriented. I do detail. I do it, but I'd rather you take me up in an airplane, blindfolded, handcuffed, and throw me out with no parachute than to have to deal with a lot of detail. But because of life, I do it, but it's not something I gravitate towards. So I'm more big picture in essence. And so I'm also aware that, okay, you've talked too long. So I felt that eventually you were going to go, Dan, hold on, because number one, that is one thing we've talked about is, you certainly feel free to interrupt me. And so just for me, I've been so in touch with it because I'm trying so hard to nail it in terms of being aware of the gifts I have, but also the things I don't do as well, trying to work on those. As I say, with detail, or I said with detail, it's not something I love, but I know it's important. So my gift is not that. So that's where I have to put a little bit more energy, but it's worth it. You see, it's worth it because that way I don't put something on my website that has 14 errors, like in one paragraph. Mm-hmm. You see, the creative part of writing my bio is great. I love it because creativity is huge for people with ADHD. We love that. But then there's the editing. Then there's the part where I have to go back in and edit. That can be agony, but in the end, it's worth it. And that's what I'm constantly telling myself is to, think about the big picture here. It's worth it in the long run. So we're very intuitive, and again, you're right, I can't see you, but I guess I was not surprised when you said, Dan, I have to stop you there, because I started to realize, I knew that I was getting into too much with my answer.
So here's another thing. So you're seeing this big picture, which is huge, right? And at the same time, you can slow down enough to listen to your feeling of knowing that I've been talking a long time, or I've been filling up the space, or whatever it is, Marilyn's going to say something. How do you what do you tell somebody who has ADHD, or regular people? I hate saying that. No, people without ADHD.
Right.
What do you tell? How do you tell people how to do that? Because that's a gift.
Well, first off, this is obviously much more challenging than if you were in front of me. Because if you're in front of me, I would look at the body language, because body language is 55% of the message. That's not my opinion. That is something that UCLA did years ago, and it really does make sense as far as the communication, the body language, tone of voice, and words. And body language is more than half of the message. The words are only 7%. So you could be saying the perfect sentence, but if your body language and your tone of voice doesn't really mesh with what you're saying. One extremely fast example is if you call into a call center and so you can't see them, and they say, "Customer service, this is Julie, can I help you?" As opposed to, "Customer service, this is Julie, may I help you?" See, it's the same words. Same words. I meant to put the same words in both sentences, but anyway. But the tone told you the first one was like, I want nothing to do with this, right? So tone of voice is important. But back to answering the question as far as what you're asking right now is body language. If I were to see you and I started, if you started to kind of do this, and kind of cross your arms, that would tell me you're getting defensive. You're literally closing up. So that's important, is to observe that. If the person starts looking around constantly, that might tell you, okay, I've gone on a little bit too long. There's a lot of things that go into body language, and what I'd recommend to everyone, whether you have ADHD or not, body language really is important. So certainly, if you don't already know some of this, I'm sure if you went to Google and just typed anything to do with body language, you'd get yourself a whole lot of help. And body language is important to be able to read that. And again, I'm not saying that to the listeners that isn't something you've already picked up on, but if you haven't, maybe this is something that might help you, is to do that, to look into body language, understand it a little bit better. Oh, one more thing, because right now there might be somebody saying, yeah, but I'm not defensive, I'm just cold. But it could be perceived as defensive. So in other words, if you were an applicant for a job doing this, it wouldn't be good. So even though maybe, Marilyn, you're not crossing your arms yet, but then you start to do it, it may just be that you're cold, but being that I understand body language, I'm realizing, okay, I better, I've hit a nerve, something's happened. So reading body language is really important.
So this is important because, Dan is a speaker. And one of the things speakers want to be able to do, regardless, is to be able to read their audience. When you're speaking, you're not just speaking into space. I mean, you're speaking to people if you're in a room, or like here. I may not see you, but I know you're there, and I'm speaking to you. So I want to be aware, and if I was in a room, I would be watching the room, listening to the room, watching people. If somebody fell asleep, then I may want to change my tone of my voice. I may walk around differently. I may walk to this person. I want to be aware of these things. And Dan is a speaker. So these are the kinds of things that he's going to check in with, but these are the kinds of things we want to check in with life, period. I mean, I don't care if you're speaking in front of one person or in front of an army of people. Checking somebody's body language is key. And when you can do what Dan is suggesting with ADHD or without, this is just a life tool that is really important for connecting, period. Right? Yep. So Dan, take us a little bit. I know you were here a couple of months ago, and we talked a lot about, ADHD in all different forms. But I'd like to know, since you were here, what has changed for you? I mean, and we can always go back to, defining this, defining that, but I'd love to know more about you, because you really are an example of living your work, living your life, trying things out, figuring out what's working. And I agree, I know that for myself. I could not be here talking about freedom and breaking free and living, without the controls of different things and feeling anchored if I wasn't breaking free myself. So we have to do that. So tell our listeners, watchers, and me what you've been up to. But before you do that, if you would love to call in, and you would love the opportunity to call in and ask Dan a question, make a comment, we'd love to have you do that. You are more than welcome to call in at 919-518-9773. That's obviously a phone. And if you are somewhere else and you can't access a phone, but you're by your computer, we'd love to have you Skype in with us on our voice. You can do that to computers, that's plural, then the number 2, the letter K, and then voice. And you also can come in on the chat, and there's some conversation going on in there as well. So if you put your name in the little space under the window to the right of the video, you can take part in the chat as well and ask questions if you like there too. So we'd love to have you be part of this show, regardless whether it's a question, a comment, a piece of your life. We'd love to have it, share with us. So that would be great. So go ahead, Dan. So tell me what you've been doing, and what changes have you been making, or what you've been up to.
Okay. I didn't, when I was doing my bio, I didn't, because you interrupted me. No, just kidding.
No, you're not. It's all right.
No, well, no, I'm not. But no, well, the truth is you did, but it was good. It was good that you did, because I'm sure the viewers are going, okay, we need to break this up just a little bit. So I'm glad you did. But one more thing I'll say about that is that, again, being a speaker for as long as I have, and I've had lots of compliments over the years, which I'm telling you, I want to give ADHD the credit. And I mentioned that earlier about descriptors for ADHD and what people have always told me that I am as a speaker. It's literally a mirror image. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. So, but when I switched to trying to get out there, I wanted to get out there and speak about ADHD. That was in April of 2013. So this is actually a relatively new take for me, a new route, but not really, because I've been a speaker for a long time doing the, ooh, I almost bumped into a lamp over here. See here, I'm going to show you the lamp if you're wondering. Yeah. Anyway, I have lots of visuals, so if you want to call in and ask for a visual, I probably have one, because I'm at home compared to last time when I was in the hotel. All right. Anyhow, so April 2013, I started to really focus on this because I've been a speaker and I've had ADHD for more than 18,000 days. In fact, what's really interesting is I did the math. I went online to one of those channels where you can, or on one of the sites, where you can put in your birth date, and it'll tell you, if you put in 18,000 days, for example, it'll tell you what that date was. That date, when I hit 18,000 days, was 2 days before I did my first talk on ADHD. Which again, to me, wasn't really a big deal because I have been living it my whole life, and all I was doing was then taking my story and sharing it. As far as being a speaker is something I love to do. And the number one fear is public speaking. Now I want you to think very carefully for just a second. The number one fear is not being thrown out of an airplane. It's not doing the taxes. It's public speaking, which is, I find that incredibly interesting. But anyhow, so here I am, and I'm working on this, trying to get through to people that, you bring me in. No, I'm not a doctor. That was one thing I've learned in the last year and a half, that people are like, now, are you a doctor? Everybody wants a doctor. And by the way, I respect doctors completely. So this is not at all a knock against doctors. I'm simply saying that if you want a doctor, I'm not the person to bring in. So that was one of the first things I realized, credibility-wise, is I don't have the MD after my name, and so people are like, well, we need to bring a doctor in. I'm not doing medical clinics, right? So I'm doing motivational speaking and motivating and inspiring and educating people about ADHD and that there is hope. Okay. So over time, over the last year and a half, and I do remember your question was more about in the last few months, but I wanted to preface all that with my 17-minute thing that I just went through with you. I've realized, gosh, in my videos that I'm putting on YouTube, because I have some videos, they're kind of like reality videos. You know how in a reality video where the person's way over here, they got the big background, you know how that is, like this? That's how a lot of mine are. And I have fun with them. But again, continuing to think, what's going on with, I wonder how other people are experiencing these. I was starting to realize, gosh, I hope I'm not offending anybody, because here I am talking about hope and inspiration. I'm inspired, and all the things that people like Walt Disney and Henry Ford and Thomas Edison have accomplished, and they all had the characteristics of ADHD. Robin Williams, who of course we all know passed away about a month ago or so, he had a number of things, including ADHD. Jim Carrey has it. Will Smith has it. I could keep going. But the thing is, a lot of people don't know that. And if they were where I was 10 years ago, they probably are watching my videos going, hey, no, he's too happy for me. I mean, really, I could see how someone wouldn't understand that I am the way that I am, but I've also gone through so much with this. This is not something I had a light case of. I've got the whole deal. If we had the entire list of anything that could come from ADHD and then the ramifications thereof or the wonderful things, I have every single one of them. All right? But I've embraced it, and it took me a long time to do that. So in my videos, I've actually started to say, I've actually started to say to people in my videos there, I've been saying, if you're not where I am, I could understand how this might be hard to believe. Or, I'm not saying that you're where I was 10 years ago, but if you were, or if you are still there, if you're still there, this might be hard for you to take in. However, so my videos are positive. And I think that is something that I've just kind of thought through on my own in the last few months, is to make sure that people understand I'm not a doctor, but I'm also someone who has embraced it, and I have a positive take on it now because life is too short. My daughter is a senior in high school, okay? A senior in high school. Our son is already out of the house. This year's already going by fast as far as senior year. I mean, it's almost November already. Well, it's halfway through October, but same thing. Anyway, life is going way too fast for me to dwell 100% of the time in the negative side of ADHD, and there are a lot of challenges to it. And that's where I was 10 years ago. I really was. I was a mess. I was a disaster. I'm blogging about it now, little by little. I'm looking for a book deal, so if anybody can help me on that. But really, I'm trying to get out, and I'm very real when I talk to people. It's not always been like I am now, but I'm trying to embrace it, which I think is a better message. I mean, do you really want to hear someone who just is negative the whole time about it? And that's okay if that's where you are, because it is a process, and I don't like to use the word process, but it really is I really believe it is a process. Mm-hmm. But there's one more thing, and then I'm sure you have another question. In the last just a couple months here, I've realized the magnitude to how people really don't understand ADHD, because all they hear is the negative. I mean, let's face it, news programs are not going to be sitting there going, let's go to a story now where we talk about somebody who's got creativity, enthusiasm, and spontaneous. Bill, take it over. They're not doing that. It's all about controversy and Ritalin, and that's all it's about, okay? About, I don't know, 6-7 weeks ago, I went into the YMCA. I go over there to swim, which is something in my last interview with you. I mentioned swimming is good. Exercise is important. It's very important, whether you have ADHD or not. And I was talking to one of these people over there, one of the people that works there, and she knows me very well. I mean, she doesn't know me well enough to know that I have ADHD or that my personal stories, but as far as being a guest coming in there, and then she checks me in and we chat a little bit. When I told her, I've started shifting my speaking to more on ADHD, she was like, why would you do that? And I said, well, I've had it my whole life, and I'm trying to. She had no clue. None. She's like, you do not have ADHD, because all she's heard is the negative stuff. And she was seeing me as an upbeat, enthusiastic, engaging person, which again, I attribute these things to ADHD. And look it up, you'll see these words all over the place when you connect it to ADHD. She was just floored. And things like this, these little aha moments, or maybe we call them an aha ADHD. Well, no, there's too many A's and H's if we do that. That would be a little much. But it was an aha moment, one of many for me that, wow. People that's all they hear is the negative.
Well, Dan,
so it's interesting. It was just really interesting to see that happen.
Yeah, so. I want to interrupt you because there are some things I want to ask you from people in the chat, plus just myself. So just one of the things I want to comment about is I think a lot of the ADHD negative connotation comes from children. Mm-hmm. That we look at children with ADHD and we think of behavior issues.
That's true.
And I think we associate adults with the children. So do you agree with that, right?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, because you're imagining the kid jumping all over the place, and so automatically you're like, yeah, but Dan, you're not jumping all over the place.
Right, or maybe you do, Yeah.
So, I do. But,
or maybe you do, or your behavior, kids with ADHD get into trouble, or they, go ahead.
Right, well, I was just going to say, but see, at the Y, she's not seeing me jumping all over the place.
Right.
So she's seeing the enthusiasm connect that had something to do with ADHD.
Right. But when you talk to people about ADHD, as far as adults talking to another adult, adults are generally, man, I can only talk for myself, so maybe this is just me, but I would associate looking at an adult and saying, oh, they must do, if I wasn't educated, which I would like to think I am now, especially because I've met Dan, but knowing children, I would say, and I taught special ed, so they're going to be like jumping off the walls, and they're going to be misbehaving, and they say inappropriate things, and they do all of these things. Well, he must be doing them too. But, that's, I think, some of the ADHD container. The next thing is I have some questions, so if you could answer them maybe a little quicker, that would be great. So
we need 4 hours.
I know. Well, that's why we do another show. So question number one is there a learning disability associated with ADHD? Is that a common piece of it, or is it, or everybody or some people with ADHD don't have a learning disability?
Now, keep in mind, I'm not a doctor.
I know.
didn't go to school for 19
I know,
years.
but you're smart with this, and so you don't have to be a
Yeah.
doctor to be smart at something.
Right. Okay, so I got to keep it down to an hour answer. Okay. Yeah, I know when I was growing up, I mean, reading was it was pretty much impossible for me, and I know over the years, you do get kind of labeled as it being a disability. Again, just in my experience, it was purely more of an inattentive and being able to sit still. I do take Adderall now. I take it just in the morning. I don't take it for the whole day. Somebody might argue either way on that as far as what you should do with it, but I take it in the morning. Because I'm doing more detail stuff in the morning, and then in the afternoon I do things like this, and I don't necessarily need to be sitting still, So, anyhow, again, not being a doctor, I'm not. It's something that you should definitely talk to a doctor about, and anything that you read about with ADHD, anything you read about it, it'll say there's so many things that crisscross. There's autism, there's I think even Asperger's is in there, learning disabilities, depression. Sometimes people are distracted because they have depression, and it has nothing to do with ADHD. Sometimes it's just anxiety. Sometimes it's all of it wrapped in one. So again, I think that definitely would probably be a perception, for sure, perception that people have, is that he just has a learning disability because he's not able to read and to sit still long enough and read. But again, not being a doctor, I don't want to be the one to say that there's definitely something in there. But I do think perception-wise it is. And I want to give you a website address that is probably, and there's a lot of great websites, this thing covers practically everything. I mean, I look through this thinking, okay, they're certainly not going to have something about this. And they will. There'll be something in there about whatever it is you can think about with ADHD. Like, for example, ADHD in women, things like that, things that you might want to read about. And it is literally, of course, www, but then it's attitude, MAG, as in magazine, but just abbreviated. So it's attitudemag.com. And what they do on the site is, because attitude starts with ADD, when you go to the site, you'll see that ADD is bigger, those three letters are bigger, and then it's attitude, so it's attitude, MAG, as in magazine.com. And I just want whoever it is that wants to know the answer to all kinds of, pretty much everything about ADHD, that is a phenomenal website. Phenomenal. And no, this isn't something, I'm not getting a kickback. I'm not even in there yet. I'm going to try to get my stuff in there, blogs and videos. But at this point, I've been working on so many other things. I haven't gotten to where I'm contacting them. But I'd like to be a part of that website, but no, there's no kickback, nothing. I mean, this is just a website I've come across, and I want you to know that it's.
Thanks.
And it's a great one.
And what we always do after shows is we take all the show notes and things that, like, our guests like this would say, and we post them in the show notes, and then they'll be on the MarilynShannon.com website. So, if you're listening and, you don't worry about writing everything down. We're going to help you take care of that.
Yeah, and in fact, Marilyn, before I forget to say this, on that website, because what I've done is I have the website on the screen, is what I've done, because I knew I was going to at some point allude to this. And I just want you to know that on the top menu bar, there actually is a school and learning disabilities main bar, and then you drop down and it's got all kinds of goodies, including working with school, social skills at school for teachers only, etc. It's just a really great site.
And I also think part of it is, and somebody was, Michelle was talking about the education system. So often I've heard we teach to the test, and we teach certain ways, but we don't always teach creatively as much as teachers would like to. It's more about certain structure as opposed to the imagination and being creative. So
Absolutely.
I think sometimes that's it's a deficit for an individual who really is a creative learner and creatively expresses themselves. It's different. Okay, one of the next really important questions is food. Do you watch a certain type of diet to help you, to support you, do you suggest a certain type of diet?
Basically, don't eat, and everything will be just fine. No, really, it's like any other diet. Sometimes you see the list is so long, you're like, gosh, well, what can I eat? Really, with people with ADHD, like myself, sugar is the main culprit. And that is something I still struggle with. It's every day it's very tempting, and I usually lose this battle, is to get a sweet tea. And I don't just get a little sweet tea. I mean, I get a ginormous sweet tea. The days that I didn't have a sweet tea, and specifically today I decided not to, I actually feel more centered. And this might not look like it on the screen, but I know how I'm feeling, inside. So sweets, anything with sugar in it is just is not good. If you can cut back on any of that. But I mean, it's like any other diet. When you look at what you shouldn't eat and what you should, it just seems like it wouldn't be much fun. But I definitely feel the difference when I have, like, if I have 19 Oreo cookies, you know how you take the entire row and then you break halfway through the next row? I'm in trouble. The rest of the day, I'm very jittery. I mean, which I think everyone would have to some degree. But I know for me, there's a very strong correlation with how I'm feeling, depending on how much sugar I have. And I feel like I'm able to concentrate a little bit better too if I don't have all that sugar. So anything that has sugar in it, I mean, I'm going to be realistic. I think it's hard to cut absolutely everything out of your diet because I don't want to be the enemy here. But you definitely should trim the amount of sugar that you eat. But that's probably the big thing would be that. So.
Yeah, and I want to say, I'm a big proponent of emotions and listening to how we feel. And I believe emotions can and do get in the way of a lot of things, our fear, and all of that's part of why we do this show, is breaking free from the fear, But I love that Dan has, etched it in stone for me. There's always time to listen to yourself. There's always time to listen to how you feel, always. Because when you think about ADHD, I mean, it's busy. There's tons of stuff going on. There's tons of things to look at. There's tons of things to do. There's tons of things to experience. There's tons of things to eat. There's tons of things to dream about. There's tons and tons and tons. That's a gift, right? You always see like the levels of life beyond. And yet, for Dan, which he's a testament to this, there's always time to check in with yourself. Now, isn't that magnificent?
I'd like to think so. I'm not sure if that was directed at me or just the audience.
Just in general, for everybody. I mean, look,
Yeah.
I said something before, and I want to keep going like this. I said before something about ADHD and regular, and I stopped myself when I heard the regular.
Yeah.
Because I don't like that. I mean, I saw somebody do it on a website, and I immediately connected and said, this is not the right thing. There's not the regular and AD. So anybody, so I want to clarify that and take that out of the equation altogether. It's not this and that. It's no, I guess I would say it's no different than tall and short, chubby and thin, I mean, it's just not right. But I would say that there's always time. I mean, Dan is an energetic soul, extremely energetic, right? There are some people who are extremely this or extremely that, or not so extremely this and not so extremely that, but nonetheless, there is always space to connect with yourself. Always. Go ahead, Dan.
I think that's why I've been able to get my arms around this, because I have paid close attention. I could easily have been like, well, it's what I have, and oh well, and just read the negative stuff and be like, well, yeah, I'm a waste, because that's kind of what you hear about. Again, in the news, it's all negative. And you brought up a really interesting thing earlier about how it's all usually about the kids. So when people do find out, when they associate adult ADHD, they're thinking about someone jumping all over the place and being put in the corner, and being suspended. I mean, that really was an interesting observation. So yeah, I think that's why it's harder for adults with it, because people just see you as irresponsible and et cetera.
Yeah.
They don't realize that sometimes you're just bored, just like kids are when they're in school, but it shows differently. I mean, it's exhibited differently. I mean, if you're in a job right now and you're bored silly, it might be because you're not allowed to be as creative as you'd like. You're also confined to a desk, which to me almost really would, just for me anyhow, okay, would seem like a prison. I mean, it really would. I mentioned it earlier. I went all the way back and I was talking about SeaWorld and how what a great place to work, but the job itself I loved. But now now that I'm really in tune with what I want to do and what I know that I can do but really don't want to, I would not want to be in a position where I'm sitting down anymore. It just wouldn't work. I don't mind a little bit of that, but 9 hours a day.
Oh, I would be.
Yeah.
You would just about have to. I don't know what you would do. I cannot imagine. Just I did it. I don't know if I said it when you were here the last time, but many years ago, I got a job working in a newspaper, and they had their office here in Raleigh, North Carolina. They had their main office in Durham, and their office that I was assigned to here in Raleigh was like in the basement. Let me tell you something. I did not make it a day, and I do not have ADHD. My skin, I felt my chest wanting to pop out of my body. I could not sit still for a minute. Putting me in a basement, and it's interesting because my brother is an accountant in Manhattan, and he does not have ADHD. But he's had to move from one office building and had to find another location. And I've thought about this so many times because when he's been looking, it was hard to find an office in New York for the kind of thing that he needed. And he finally found it. He has no windows. And it was one of the drawbacks for him. And I know my brother is, as much as he's an accountant and sits at a desk all day long looking at numbers, my brother is creative. I know it. I look at him, I can tell. And he cannot, he's had to make amends. He's had to figure out other things to look at, he needs to get up from the desk, he needs to go outside, but it was something for him. So honestly, it's not just ADHD, it's all of us. That's why this conversation, when I posted it based on the fact that this is an everybody conversation. So now I know when I've talked enough and it's Dan's turn, because I can tell that if I don't shut up, he's going to jump out of his skin. So go ahead, Dan.
No, I'm so much is resonating now with me because of my background in career coaching and career transition. That's been a bulk. That's been the bulk of what I've done. As I mentioned earlier, it's just been recently, a year and a half ago, that I've really started to delve in. And now I have a website on ADHD, and I'm tweeting. And by the way, I'm getting at least 10 to 15 new Twitter followers a day. And with my other just general Dan Galloway, I get maybe one. Whereas with the ADHD speaker, which is what I go by with my on the ADHD side, it's just lighting up. Every day I'm getting more Twitter followers, right? Which it's not about. That's not what this is about. Is getting Twitter followers. I'm just telling you that it's interesting because I think I've really kind of got to where I'm doing what I should be. I feel like what I should really be doing. My destiny, whatever you want to call it. But anyway, back to the career transition, career coaching aspect of what I've done. I want to give a suggestion to those who maybe are in the wrong job. They know they are, or maybe if you haven't actually determined it's the wrong job, something's just not right. A lot of people now, including me, they do a variety of things. This is not the only thing I do. I do career coaching in addition to the speaking on ADHD. I come out. I don't market this all that much because I enjoy the other things a little bit more. But I do team building. I do Myers-Briggs. I even work for a catering company on Saturday nights at weddings. So I have a lot of different things I do. In fact, there's a couple more things that, they're more on the illegal side. No, that's a joke. Yeah. That's a joke. I'm kidding, everybody. Okay, I'm joking. But seriously, if you're in a career transition and you're looking for the perfect job, it may be out there, but it may not. Maybe you have a pie of income with different pieces, and especially if you have ADHD, the variety piece is huge for you. It is. I mean, I know for me it is. We get bored easy, and it's good to have variety. So that's just a little, you didn't even ask about it, but I picked that up when you were talking about, you said
Yeah.
your brother, right? Your
Yeah.
brother?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you know what,
Yeah.
though? That is a typical recipe for an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs love variety. They
Mm-hmm.
love variety. So it's like this show is for permission. So I want to ask you another question. Grounding. How do you, I know you swim, you have a
Mm-hmm.
family, but what do you do? Do you meditate? Do you play music? What do you do to
Mm-hmm.
relax, to ground, to
Okay.
get your thoughts together, to be this thoughtful? How do you do it?
Well, I'm going to tell you one of the gifts, which I know I've mentioned today and the last time I was on the show, and if you have me back, I'll mention it again, is creativity. And when I can get to where I can just sit down and be creative, whether it's my website or this or that or editing a video, which I love the editing of my videos. I love that part because I fade things in and I fade things out and I have things fade. I love that. So there's a situation where I'm not really just resting necessarily, just laying there, but I am resting because I'm in a zone that I just love. I love to use creativity. People that know me or think they know me see me as just enthusiastic and you can't sit down. Actually, I can sit down if it has to do with creativity. So it's interesting. I have mentioned exercise tonight, Monday nights. I play basketball with some friends. I look forward to that very, very much. The exercise feels great. But, and again, this is just the more I get in tune with this, I really love it when I can just get to where I can sit down and edit my videos and maybe write a post for my blog because it's creativity. So it's interesting because the thing I do to ground myself is actually getting to where I can do the things I really want to do being ADHD, as opposed to things I really don't want to have to deal with, like making a call to the life insurance company or, having to go pay a bill or, all that stuff that I do but I don't want to. That's what gets me stressed. But
That's
to
very,
sit down,
yeah, and I think
yeah.
that's very interesting because you're saying that, and I can say to the same thing similar about myself as well. Like the thing that really soothes me is when I'm able to at night, when I know the phones are not going to be ringing and can't call anybody, is to do the things that I can't do during the day, and it's work related. But it's posting, maybe it's creating something, maybe it's thinking about my creating something. I mean, I get juiced over that. So I think it's really important. But and I want to mention again, if anybody wants to call in, 919-518-9773 or computers 2, then that's the number 2, K Voice on Skype. So, boy, this time is flying by.
Yeah, see, because I am focusing on the camera, I don't even know what time it is.
Yeah,
So I'm just
we have
letting you
10
do this.
minutes to go, but there's a good question or something good that I've noticed in the chat and I want to talk to you about. And it's, you said not a jack, you're a jack of all trades. What did you say? How did you term yourself? Did you say you were a jack of all trades or not?
You're
Yes. Yeah.
talking to me.
You.
Okay. See, because again, I can't see you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah.
didn't know if you were clarifying something with the caller.
Yeah, I am
So,
in a minute, but
Yeah.
you are a jack of all trades.
Not all trades.
Okay,
No,
but
definitely not. See, because I could not do an accounting job. You see.
Okay, that's
But
okay.
I have various things I do to survive, and I like variety. And so, as opposed to one job, which, by the way, if it was the right job, I think that'd be great if I could have just the one job, steady paycheck. But I like to do different things for variety's sake. So.
Because it's interesting because somebody I think it's Michelle or somebody brought up about some kind of relationship or the difference between being what they call a general practitioner, being like, knowing a little bit about a lot of things as opposed to being the expert. Which I think is an interesting conversation because I often will say, I too know a little bit about a lot of things. I don't, maybe I feel like I'm an expert in emotion, but that doesn't mean somebody else isn't. I usually everybody can be an expert. So what do you think about that, Dan? What's the relationship for you between being a GP as opposed to an expert?
So you're saying a general,
Yeah,
just
like a
a
knowing
more.
about a lot of different things. And I think you
Mhm.
really are your experience in ADHD does constitute you being an expert in your life. You are
Because I've really wanted to do it. I'm wanting to do it right,
yes, yes,
and
and then you are
yes.
the expert of your life. You
Hmm.
know, so I don't even know if there's a question there other than just a discussion. I'm just curious about your point of view.
Hmm. So you're saying me in general, just,
Yeah,
do I
yeah,
see myself as
yeah.
a, yeah. I mean, certainly I have lots of interests. I can vacuum a car pretty good. I do a pretty good job of vacuuming the car. If I can get to that. Of course, I get distracted. Hold on. Don't leave, okay? Hold on. Okay. Which, by the way, how do these things get to where they're tangled when you put them down perfectly? I've never, because I have to use this to get out to the car. Can anybody call in and explain how this thing gets so screwed up? Anyway, so I do. I like to vacuum. I like to vacuum. I like to. Aha! I also like to rearrange the living room constantly, or the bedroom. And again, I really believe that comes down to creativity. I do pictures up and do all kinds of things constantly, putting new ones in frames and old ones I'll put away for a while, and a knick-knack here and a knick-knack there. So you know what? Back to your question about grounded, that's something else I do. I really like is to, many people have told me I should actually have been or maybe should be an interior designer. I mean, anyhow.
Yeah.
So I do have lots of interests, but I'm really, if you said, what are your real strengths? It would be living the life of ADHD and being someone who could talk about adversity. I've saved you all so much grief as far as what I could go into, but also perseverance and perspective. And that stuff also ties into my other love, which is the career transition work I've done. So ideally, I mean, I should probably be an ADHD career coach, probably, because that would be the incredible marriage of the
Well,
two.
maybe that does help kind of hone it in a little bit for you.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be that is maybe I should be. It's one of the things because, like me, like you, like a lot of people listening and watching, we don't do one thing. We do
Mhm.
several things, but they're connected.
Yes, yeah, usually there's some kind of, I mean, you might have to have something in your pie of income that maybe you really don't want to do, because I certainly have things in order, of what I really like to do and what I don't want to do as much, but I'll do it. I mean, just like life in general. Um, but yeah, I mean, again, if you're in a job and you're bored out of your mind, it may be because there's not as much variety. And on top of that, if you're also having to sit down all the time, if you don't know this, because some people I do think just kind of go to work, pay the bills, come home, watch TV, go home, and honestly, that's fine. However, I think it can be even finer. In other words, I really think that try to get into your mind. If there's something you really want to do, make some change, whether it's a career change or being self-employed or whatever it might be. I'd go for it. I mean, just my belief is that you live one time. That's just my belief. Everyone might have a different belief, but that's mine.
Well, I don't know.
And
We don't know, right?
yeah, we don't know. I mean,
So look,
but
I want to interrupt you because
yeah,
we're getting
yeah,
into that dark
yeah,
time where we are almost going to have to
right.
say goodbye. But before we get into some more things, I want to make sure that you tell people where they can find you and all of
Okay.
that kind of stuff. And also, I want to thank you for your honesty because you say things that a lot of us, all of us, admire you for saying. And I do for one because you're so honest and you're living your your journey and and you do have, this turn, that turn, this
Hmm.
street, that street, this hill, this mountain, and we all do. But you're out
Right.
here talking about it in a really great positive way and thank you.
And you know what? And I know I only have 18 more minutes, but no, I probably only have a minute or so. But one other thing I've noticed in the last couple of months is on LinkedIn, if I post something just general, go for it, you live once. I'll get all these people will be liking and commenting. But if I mention anything about ADHD, nothing. And this actually has been a little bit of an experiment. And I've realized LinkedIn is just not the place for it. It isn't. Whereas on Twitter, all these people are like, oh, wow, you talk about ADHD. So it's interesting how many people still, it's a negative stigma. I'll bet you anything, even though I don't have any money, and I really don't have any money, but I'd bet you anything, it's just an expression, that if these people on LinkedIn knew that Disney had it and Henry Ford, and all that, they would be commenting all day long on it. But again, people don't understand
Well,
it.
it's not, and they don't want to, and again, some people
and they don't want to open up.
No, they don't want to see
they're-
themselves. But you know
Yep.
what? Twitter is an ADHD platform. It's just the way it moves. It moves so fast. So it's stimulating in that regard. And I would just say, you go where you should go. But I would suggest you go to Google Plus, big time.
Yeah, I'm working. I am. I'm working
Big
towards
time.
that. I had to build. You know what? The last time I was on the show, I think I had 4 Twitter followers. Now I have 470 something, and that's only been a couple months.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's kind of big. It's somewhere along the way. I am making a difference. And you know what?
yeah.
Honestly, it's not on LinkedIn, or it is on LinkedIn, but people just don't want to
they won't
acknowledge,
tell you. It's like here. Amnon will
Yeah.
always say,
Yeah.
shows when people are really listening, or there's something really. Sometimes they don't call in, but
right. And
what
I
they-
understand that. I mean, I do.
Yeah. So tell
I
everybody
understand
where they can get you.
Okay, here we go. You ready?
Yes.
It's so simple. There's a great website. It's called About, and then .me. It's about about.me. And then you do the slash, and then it's the ADHD speaker. That is a fabulous site that I recommend all of you, anyone who's listening, look at it and consider putting a profile on there. That's another place where people are giving me all kinds of compliments, as opposed to LinkedIn. So I find that interesting. On About Me, they do that. But so it's about.me and then the slash, the ADHD speaker. There's no com in it. You know how usually there's a .com? It's just about.me / the ADHD speaker. Okay. The reason I want to give you that site is then if you go to the bottom of the profile, and please read it too, it just comes short paragraphs, about me, and then all my other links, all of them. I mean, Twitter, my website, everything is there. The last time when I was on the show, I gave you my website. I think this is a better way to do it because when you see this page, it gives you an overview, and then on the bottom, it's got all these links. And also, see yourself putting a page on there. It's a pretty cool platform.
Okay. And so keep in mind that if you know anybody, speaking opportunities for Dan, this is a universal message. And the more we can embrace who we are, the better it's going to be for everybody. So in closing, Dan, I want to ask you very shortly, I know this is interesting, what does freedom mean to you? What does breaking free mean to you?
It's funny you say the word freedom. I think that is what it does for me. If you've seen The Shawshank Redemption, which is my favorite movie of all time, you know how it ends. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's a movie about hope. There's the whole concept of freedom in that movie. And if you've seen it, Andy Dufresne is the main character. I have seen myself as Andy Dufresne. And towards the end what he does to get where he goes eventually. I'm not trying to give it away for anyone who has not seen it. I've seen me. That has kind of been, metaphorically, that has been me. Even though the movie is set in prison, and I'm not in prison. I haven't been in prison. I wouldn't last in prison. I mean, I would last about a minute. I'd be done. But you say the word freedom, and that's kind of how I see it. Is that word?
Okay, so give me a picture. I haven't seen the picture. Tell me, what does freedom mean to you?
Well, again, I don't know how many people have seen that movie, so I don't want to give it away.
Right.
But freedom means being able to be myself, and for those who understand it, great. For those who don't, then I could either choose to be bitter about that, or I could educate them. And I'm to a point where I'm trying to educate people. I want to get people to go, oh, there is hope for my kids. Like if I were to do a speech in front of maybe some parent groups or something, I could get the parents to go, I did not know Disney had this. So maybe kids could start to get feedback from their parents that's the positive stuff, because the parents now understand it a little bit more.
Right.
The parents have hope. The kids get a little bit more positive feedback.
That's the name of the game. That is the name of the game.
Yeah, but it's not just children. I also want to be up in front of people adults that have ADHD.
Right. So thank you once again, Dan, for being you and coming here and sharing all this, because I know every time I'm in your company, I come away with accepting myself more, and what better way than to experience breaking free than that? That is freedom. So I want to thank you so much for being here again.
Thank
and
you
sharing.
thank you for having me. I really enjoy this.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And I want to thank everybody out there, Amnon.
Yes.
You too.
Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Everybody that's been in the chat, and everybody listening and watching, and everyone that's watching this on YouTube eventually. Thank you very much for being here. Connect with us, please. Let us know what you think. Reply, send us a message, all that good stuff. Amnon, any final words?
Check out the About Me page. I just think that's important.
Perfect.
For them to see that.
Perfect. Thank you all so much, and live your best life this week, and let us know what that's like. And with that, take care, have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCBVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.